From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. You know, your betters in government do not like it when you do not play along. We saw that with the Brexit revolt. We saw that with Trump's election in 2016. We see that going on right now with the Jan 6 Star Chamber and all of those Republicans quietly cheering on Quislings like Cheney and Kinzinger, even the new Marxists like Schiff, because they don't want to see Trump back in 24. And I'm not, declaring my allegiance to Trump by any stretch of the imagination, or that I'd prefer him in 24 over DeSantis. But I don't appreciate the conniving nature of the combine Republican, and that is not limited anymore to Illinois. Actually, it never was. It also includes those combine Republicans in D.C., inside the Beltway, those Republicans that are transactional, the consultant class that just wants to line their money with the pockets of billionaires they have access to, and wants to make sure, in the immortal words of Bill Cellini, as memorialized by John Cass, that the way it works is when we're in, we're in, and when they're in, we're in. We're always in. That's Karl Rove, for example. Karl Rove, writing in the Wall Street Journal, fringe GOP candidates struggling in primaries are getting temporary aid from unusual allies. Democrats are spending tens of millions of dollars on ads in Republican primaries depicting the more radical contender as too conservative, which may be an effective attack in a general election, but appeals to Republican voters in primaries. The upside for Democrats is it can lead the GOP to nominate candidates who are less attractive to swing voters in November. They're using this strategy to meddle in the June 28 primaries for governor of Illinois and U.S. Senator and governor in Colorado. So let's focus on Illinois, since that's where we are. 12 days away. Here's Karl Rove's handle from afar. Aurora, Illinois Mayor Richard Irvin, a conservative veteran, and former prosecutor who emphasizes fighting crime, cutting taxes and spending, and cleaning up politics, and who happens to be black, would be a strong contender this November. That's why Governor Pritzker and the DGA are spending an estimated $32 million, nothing close to that, by the way, labeling Mr. Irvin's principal primary opponent, Senator Darren Bailey, as too conservative for Illinois. Mr. Bailey is a freshman legislator from a downstate district of farms and forests along the Indiana border, without major cities or media coverage. The GOP's best chance to win statewide is a nominee who renews the party's strength in the northern suburbs while still attracting support from downstate Republican strongholds, and then gets more votes in Chicago than GOP candidates normally do. To deny Mr. Irvin the nomination, Democrats are spending far more depicting Mr. Bailey as a strong conservative than Mr. Bailey is spending on his own campaign. Also not true. But how about the characterization? Darren Bailey is from southern Illinois, where there's no people, there's just farms and forests. He's a fringe candidate. That's the title of the piece. Why are Democrats funding the GOP fringe? I'd like somebody to distinguish the policy positions of a Gary Rabine from a Darren Bailey. because I would have difficulty doing so, and I follow this stuff fairly closely.
Yeah.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. 64636DA, turnkey.pro text line. Darren Bailey is a fringe candidate because he's got a southern accent in Illinois. That seems to be the sum total of it. Oh, and because he believes in God. I mean, and he's, not unwilling to say it. That makes him fringe? The Republican primary voters are being hoodwinked by the DGA and by Governor Jelly Belly. Is that right? Because the smart play is to watch what Governor Pritzker is doing and agree with him. That's the smart play. The smart play is to say, I've decided that your best chance is this guy, so Republicans, you should also believe that. Because we should take, as I said the other day when we were talking about this, we should take J.B. Pritzker's deep insights into the human condition and Republican Party politics to heart. We should let him determine who our nominee is by whatever he expresses as who our nominee shouldn't be. Really? Yeah. It's interesting what Rove doesn't mention, in addition to getting all sorts of things wrong, conservative veteran. Really, a pro-sanctuary state, pro-Black Lives Matter mayor who's voted in 7 of the last 8 Democrat primaries. That's what you call a conservative, Carl? Is that right?
Well, are they getting paid off too by Ken Griffin to say this? Is Laura Ingraham? Well, how did he get on Fox?
This is whatever, for friends of friends. I mean, this is political favors, but whatever it is, this is the establishment closing ranks, which is what they do. This was supposed to be this way, and the voters are poised to make it a different way, and you're not listening to us. You have to listen to us. Now, you can say, well, Carl Rover's just making an argument. He is, and I'm making mine. It's fine. Voters will decide. I'm fine with that.
In 12 days.
The other thing that Carl fails to address, much like he fails to address how George W. Bush's compassionate conservatism, a redundancy, and big government republicanism, which is what that translated into, ushered in Obama. Much as he doesn't want to explain how what turned out to be ill-conceived forays in war and nation building in the Middle East ushered in Obama. But it wasn't just post 9/11. It was Medicare expansion, big government conservatism. Government, we're going to make government work. We grow it because that means we can provide more benefits. And even if our intentions are laudable, if the vehicle's wrong, the outcome is going to be poor.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. You can also text us on our text line, 64636. Type in DA, then a quick comment.
See, that's the establishment's deal. It's the same thing in Illinois. We're never wrong.
Don't
and we're never accountable when things go wrong when we're in charge. We're not responsible. Outside forces. And when we are rejected, as the combine Republicans are about to be rejected on June 28th in the governor's race here, well, we're already going to set up the argument about how you should have listened to us. You nominated the wrong guy. You didn't listen to us. So when you lose in November, it's your fault. When we lose in November, like with Bruce Rauner in 2018, after spending a primary campaign lying and alienating almost half of the Republican primary electorate, not our fault. Not our fault. Bad year, Trump, Pritzker's money, all sorts of excuses. Not our fault. We're in charge. What Rauner's governorship, not our fault. We were in charge, not our fault. No, Madigan, Cullerton, they made us do it. They made us make a permanent increase in their income tax. They made us sign the most radical, at the time, pro-abortion law in the country. They made us make Illinois a sanctuary state. Not our fault. Never their fault. And then they nominate a candidate, Karl Rove. Apparently he doesn't do opposition research anymore. They nominate a candidate. And, and I've made plenty of mistakes in electoral politics before. And I've blown through too many red lights before in previous campaigns, so I know what it looks like. They nominate a candidate. They look at it on paper. They sell a guy that says it will come in with overwhelming resources and say, there it is. And then they make completely imbecilic arguments, contradictory arguments. First half of the campaign, Darren Bailey is a rhino who supported Biden over Trump. Second half of the campaign, when they're flailing, Darren Bailey's too conservative for Illinois. Which is it? Which one is it?
I'm just getting sick of it. All the
But they're
ads
never
and the flyers and all that.
And so they blew through all the red lights. They blew through all the red lights on Richard Irvin. They thought they could flim-flam their way through another primary with a flim-flam man, because that's what they do.
And don't forget those 60-plus Republicans, state lawmakers, who signed on to support him.
Oh, I don't.
I mean,
They're-
never
they're-
forget who they are, because I
Yeah.
lost a lot of friends on that one.
But right, they're a
And
bunch
question
of...
them, like, how much are you getting paid? What were you promised? And what are you doing? And the more that you know about him, are you ready to cross your name off the list?
No,
And
they're a bunch-
especially that one with his girlfriend, and that whole thing is just a debacle, too. Just speaks to his character or lack of character.
Right, because they're a bunch of welfare
Bunny cooker.
queens. We lost one billionaire in Ronner. I need somebody else to write checks. I don't want to work. I don't have to make an argument. I don't want to have to stand for anything. I just want to make sure I got, somebody in my corner that can write checks so I can overwhelm any potential opponent with money to protect my little piece of turf in this political turf in the state. That's the disposition of most of the Republican Party under the wonderful stewardship of Jim Durkin and now Dan McConkey. Bill Brady before him, Tom Cross before Durkin. It's been the same deal. Blew through all those red lights. We'll shine on those conservatives, 3/4 of the primary electorate. We'll tell lies about their opponents as needed. First we'll try to threaten at least some of their opponents out of the race, which they did. Then we'll tell lies about them and threaten to destroy them, which they did. Mm-hmm. Then they'll believe that they can, with their money, hoodwink at least a plurality of the Republican electorate to win the nomination. And, all this stuff about he supports sanctuary state and a lie with Pritzker and Lightfoot, and he went right along with Pritzker with all the COVIDian lockdown policies, imposed the vaccine mandate. He told the police to stand down when the riots came to roar in the summer of 2020. He's a strong and enthusiastic supporter of Black Lives Matter. His own words, he's conflicted about the riots because that sort of disruption is how you bring about change. He plays the identitarian card. He votes in Democrat socialist primaries. He's a grifter in Aurora doing pay-to-play deals like any other hack politician in the state. We can just set all that aside. Nobody's allowed to pay attention to it. Nobody's allowed to express concerns about it because we got it. Don't worry about it. We got this one. And, do you want to win or not? And as I said the other day, what do we win when we win? Just the other half of the combine?
And when Irvin loses, is he going to support the nominee?
That's his choice.
Is he going to go back to being a Democrat?
That's his choice.
I wonder.
They win always. And Illinois never does. Don't you find that curious? Even when a putative Republican wins something important, Illinois continues to lose. Do you find that odd? Karl Rove doesn't. Greg and Schaumburg.
I thought the Combine's disparagement of Jeannie Ives was bad. But what they're doing to Darren Bailey is just beyond reproach. It is evil. And I certainly hope that all of you folks out there recognize it and don't vote for him, because there's a lot of media out there that's getting that squishy vote that doesn't listen to the show, and you need to reach out to them and tell them exactly what's going on. Thanks.
Thanks, Craig. I mean, this race, Bailey has extended a lead, but it's still 12 days. I'm not saying this is a fait accompli. Never, ever say
Never
that
say that.
until
It's a
all the
sizable
votes are
lead
counted.
with what 36%, and Richard Irvin's got what 20 or 20.
The Trafalgar poll that was out yesterday had a 37-20.
Okay.
That's something else, too. This isn't just about Darren Bailey and Richard Irvin. This is about the Republican primary electorate in this state. It's about the Republican Party in this state. And it will go unnoticed by the Ronner consultants, the Ken Griffin gatekeeper, Kason Carter, who, facilitated this conspiracy of fools. Let's say that that's the final spread. So you'll take judicial notice of the fact that 4 in 5 Republican primary voters voted for somebody who's actually conservative and against the guy who had $50 million to try to convince people he wasn't, and that those other conservatives, that he was, and that those other conservatives weren't. I mean, this is... Add Bailey's vote up with whatever Bailey gets, with Rabine, with Sullivan, with Schimpf, with Solomon. That's the conservative vote. But we shouldn't have a conservative. We're not allowed to have a conservative representing the Republican Party because Karl Rove and the moribund, compromised GOP leadership, in quotation marks, says so. Because that's not what they want. And they don't appreciate that disconnect is why we've been in super minority hell for the past 2 generations. And tell me, somebody make this make sense for me, because I'm struggling. Mike in Plano.
Hey, Dan, whenever you hear these establishment, corporate, Fox News Republican types use the phrase suburbs or suburban women, etc., what they're telling you is a principled conservative is that in order to become more appealing among the general public and in order to get them to like you more, you have to be more socially liberal. You have to be more accepting of LGBT. Talk about abortion as little as possible. Yeah, it's okay to support red flag laws because it'll keep the guns out of the hands of bad guys, et cetera. And it's not just Karl Rove. You look at people like Sean Hannity, who no longer has a Trump train to cling to. He's going back to his old days as another Republican toady. If you watch his show, he always has Herschel Walker and Leo Terrell on to tell you how much he loves black people. Has Caitlyn Jenner on to tell you how much he loves gay people. I'll vote for Mehmet Oz. He's a strong conservative. It's just more useless pandering, and you're seeing it reflect in the Republican primary electorate, especially in these races down south, because unfortunately you're seeing people like Nancy Mace and Brian Kemp and Steve Scalise, John Cornyn, all these people keep getting reelected over and over again by the same constituents who say that they're against the establishment.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Mike. Not all of them. Rice in South Carolina certainly didn't. Fran in Aurora.
Good morning.
Morning.
So you're right on spot. I'm from Aurora. Richard Irvin has only run in nonpartisan races. I went to the Republican establishment. I told them he was a Democrat. It's documented.
Okay.
If he gets through, the people, the voters in the state will have, say, just a choice, the kind of choice that we have now in Aurora. It's one Democrat or the other.
Has he been effective at all as your mayor? Fran?
He's rode the coattails of the business establishment here that have been allowed to come in, but there's been a price to pay.
You're the
And
Aurora.
I don't know that much about it. I can tell you, I have friends who stood on the line during the riots. They were told to stand down. Everybody, this has been out there. But if he gets through, people should know their choice will be like the choice we have, which is one Democrat or the other.
You're the Aurora Republican Township Chairman, right?
That's correct.
And so what's his involvement been with the Republican Party locally?
None. Richard is not a precinct committeeman. He is not a member of the Aurora Township Republicans.
Well, that says it all right there.
Thanks for the call, Fran. Appreciate it. Chuck, Northwest Side.
Yeah, hi, Dan and Amy.
Hey.
Yesterday in the mail I got from the Democratic Party telling me that Darren Bailey is so conservative that he's almost Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get from the Illinois conservative that he's just a flaming liberal who's going to tear apart everything. And so who's right? I mean, how are we supposed to tell when they pull this kind of stuff?
Well, with Bailey, it's pretty straightforward because he's got a record. Thanks for the call, Chuck. And also public positions and legislation filed and all sorts of things that speak to that. So, right, whoever, other than Richard Irvin, whoever the nominee is going to be characterized as Hitler because that's what the left does. Every Republican is Hitler. George W. Bush was Hitler.
Right.
Karl Rove seems to forget that sort of hysterical character assassination the left does, regardless of who their opponent is.
I remember
Thinking
Rod
that-
DeSantis,
thinking think-
his opponent said he's Hitler, too.
Of course, it happens all the time.
Goofy.
It's all that is stock and trade. So you think that somebody is going to get like a pass on some issues? Richard Irvin's middling answers on abortion or guns. You think they're not going to characterize if he were the nominee, they wouldn't characterize him the same way they'll characterize Darren Bailey? Then you haven't been paying any attention to how the left operates, including in this state. Even with so-called modern, that they did that to Bruce Rauner. He and his wife raised money for Personal PAC, the pro-abortion outfit in this state. They're Planned Parenthood donors, for God's sakes. And they characterized him when he was running for re-election, even after signing the law, as an opponent of women's rights and so on and so forth. That's all the left has. So stop worrying about what they're going to say about us and start telling people who we are. It's the John Wooden playbook that the Republican Party has refused to run in this state for basically as long as I've been around. Don't worry about what the other side is doing. If we do what we're supposed to do, it won't matter what they're doing. Coming up at 6:36.